The lost era. The cold hum of a machine echoed through the darkened room. A single screen flickered in the dim light, showing a map of the galaxy, but it wasn't any normal map. This was something different. It was Earth's last hope, a forgotten secret that had been buried for centuries. A message was being broadcast from an underground base deep within the heart of Earth, a message that would send shockwaves through the galaxy. For centuries, humanity had been wiped from the records of galactic history, erased from the minds of all but a few. The ancient galactic powers, the Coalition, had done their best to bury every trace of humanity. They had written them off as a failed experiment. The truth was simple. Humanity had been forgotten, but not by their own choice. In the years after the Great War, when humanity fought for their survival against overwhelming odds, the galactic powers saw them as a threat. The humans had once been powerful, their warships massive and their technology advanced. The galaxy had feared them, but that fear turned into a desire to control. They erased Earth from the galactic records, painting a story where humanity had vanished, leaving only empty space behind. The truth, however, was far from what the galaxy wanted to believe. Humanity wasn't gone. Earth had survived. While the rest of the galaxy continued to expand and evolve, Earth remained in isolation, hidden in plain sight. Those who survived the war rebuilt, and as time passed, they grew stronger. They had learned to adapt, to endure. And now, after centuries of silence, they were ready to strike back. The broadcast from the underground base sent a clear message to the galaxy. Humanity is not gone. We are still here. The voice of the broadcaster was shaky but determined. They thought we were dead, erased, forgotten. But we're not. We've been here, watching, waiting. We've rebuilt, we've healed, and now we're coming for what is ours. The galaxy will know our name again. The humans had not forgotten the horrors of the war, nor the betrayal of the galactic powers that had abandoned them. The universe thought they could bury them in the past, but humanity would prove them wrong. Earth was no longer the quiet, ignored planet it once was. It was a force in the making, one that would challenge the very powers that had tried to erase them. The message flashed across the screen once more, this time with coordinates. A hidden fleet had been activated. The Phoenix, Earth's last and most powerful warship, was ready to be launched. And it wasn't alone. There were others, humans who had survived and gathered strength in secret. They were preparing to rise up, to reclaim their place in the stars. On the surface of Earth, the scene was much different. It was a world of ruins, remnants of a civilization that had once thrived, but was now forgotten. The cities lay in rubble, swallowed by nature's reclaiming hands. The skies were darker than they had ever been before, clouded by years of disrepair and neglect. The once proud monuments to human achievement now stood as ghostly reminders of what had been lost. Yet even in this broken world, there was life. Humanity had not perished. In underground bunkers, scattered across the planet, groups of humans had kept their cultures alive. They had kept their resolve. They had kept their memories. The old stories of Earth, of the war, and of the galaxy were told in whispers, passed down from generation to generation. Inside one of these hidden bunkers, a small group of survivors had gathered around the message. Their eyes were wide with disbelief, their hearts pounding in their chests. They knew what this meant. It wasn't just a call to arms. It was a declaration of war against those who had forgotten them. "We've waited long enough," said Captain Leela, her voice sharp with resolve. "The galaxy thought they could erase us, but they've made a mistake. We're coming for them. We'll show them what happens when you forget humanity." The room fell silent as the weight of her words hung in the air. They knew the task ahead of them would not be easy. The galactic powers were vast, their fleets almost unbeatable. But the humans had something they didn't: a burning desire for revenge, a relentless will to survive, and a thirst for justice that had been building for centuries. Outside, a thick fog covered the once great cities. The humans had rebuilt, not just their physical strength, but their spirit. They had endured the darkest times, and now they were ready to face whatever came next. The battle for Earth's future had begun, and it would not be fought on Earth alone. Back in the hidden base, the broadcast continued, now with images of the Phoenix being prepped for launch. The warship gleamed with the light of hope, a symbol of humanity's resilience. It was armed, ready, and waiting for the day it would rise again. Humanity wasn't just going to reclaim Earth. They were going to reclaim their place among the stars. And this was only the beginning. The cold silence of Earth's underground base was shattered as the hum of machinery grew louder. Captain Leela stood before a large holographic display, her fingers moving rapidly across the controls. The map of the galaxy stretched before her, showing hundreds of planets, space stations, and fleet routes. But today, her focus was on one single location, the Galactic Council's headquarters. Her eyes narrowed with determination. "We're ready," she muttered, more to herself than to the others in the room. Around her, a team of highly trained operatives prepared for the next phase of humanity's return to the galactic stage. Their mission was clear: take back what was once theirs. It was no longer just about survival. It was about revenge, justice, and showing the galaxy that humanity had not been forgotten. The galaxy had made a grave mistake, one they were about to regret. On the surface, the cities of Earth were still in ruins, but the human spirit was stronger than ever. Hidden within the underground bunkers, Earth's remaining population had begun to mobilize, rallying around the idea of reclaiming their place in the galaxy. They had been preparing for this moment for centuries, building ships, weapons, and technology that would rival the best the galaxy had to offer. In the heart of the base, the Phoenix was nearly ready for launch. Its massive engines hummed with barely contained power, waiting to be unleashed. The ship's exterior gleamed, a symbol of humanity's strength. It was a vessel unlike any other, designed for one purpose: to strike at the heart of the galactic powers and show them that they had made a terrible mistake in abandoning Earth. But it wasn't just the Phoenix that was ready. The fleet, a group of ships built from scavenged materials and advanced human ingenuity, was preparing for deployment. Hundreds of ships, large and small, lined the docks, each one armed and ready to join the battle. Each ship carried the hopes of humanity, each one a testament to their unyielding will to survive. Leela watched as the final preparations were made. Her fingers hovered over the control panel, and with a deep breath, she gave the command: "Initiate launch sequence." Outside the base, the ground trembled as the Phoenix's engines roared to life. The once-forgotten world of Earth shook with the power of humanity's might. The ship, sleek and intimidating, began to rise slowly into the sky, carrying with it the weight of centuries of suffering and survival. As the Phoenix ascended, the skies above Earth darkened. It was not a natural storm, but one created by the immense energy output of the ship's engines. The other ships in the fleet followed suit, breaking free of the atmosphere, their hulls reflecting the dim light of a distant sun. "Prepare to engage the Galactic Council," Leela ordered, her voice cold and unwavering. For years, the humans had been forgotten by the galaxy, but now they were coming for their revenge. The Galactic Council, a massive coalition of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, had thought they could erase humanity from history. They had underestimated the human spirit. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Council was in the midst of a meeting. Representatives from various planets and species gathered in a massive, ornate chamber. They were discussing the latest developments in the galaxy: trade routes, planetary conquests, and new alliances. The fate of the galaxy rested in their hands, but they were about to be blindsided by the arrival of an unexpected force. At the head of the table sat Chancellor Veller, the leader of the council. His expression was stern as he listened to the latest report. "Is there anything new on the situation with Earth?" he asked, his voice a calm but authoritative tone. An aide stepped forward, holding a datapad in his hand. "No significant updates, Chancellor. Earth remains a forgotten planet, one of no importance. Our records show that they've been silent for centuries. Veller nodded, satisfied with the information. Good. Keep it that way. The aide hesitated, glancing nervously at the data pad in his hands. There's one more thing, sir, he said reluctantly. There has been an unusual energy signature detected, originating from the direction of Earth. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Veller frowned. Unusual how? The aide's voice was strained. It's massive. The energy output is beyond anything we've ever encountered. It's almost as if. Before he could finish, alarms blared throughout the chamber. A red light flashed overhead, signaling a threat. Veller stood up abruptly, his face paling. What is it? What's happening? The aide's eyes widened as he looked at the readout. It's impossible. The energy signature, it's coming from Earth. The humans, they've returned. A silence fell over the council. The leaders of the galaxy stared at each other, unable to comprehend what they had just heard. Humanity, long thought to be gone, was alive and coming for them. The Phoenix and its fleet tore through the cosmos at breakneck speed, its hull shimmering against the darkness of space. With every passing moment, humanity's long-forgotten presence grew stronger. The crew aboard the flagship, including Captain Leela, knew they were about to rewrite history. Every star they passed reminded them of their suffering, but it also fueled their resolve. They weren't just reclaiming Earth, they were reclaiming their place in the galaxy. As the fleet approached the Galactic Council's territory, a cold sense of determination spread throughout the ships. The ancient, damaged records from Earth's past still echoed in their minds. They had once been a powerful force, feared, respected, but the galaxy had forgotten them, abandoned them to rot in isolation. Now they were returning to remind the galaxy of what it had lost. But they weren't the only ones watching the stars. The Galactic Council was on high alert, the very message Leela had sent spreading like wildfire across every major system. The data had been intercepted, and the Council's top advisors scrambled to understand what was coming their way. Chancellor Veller paced in his chambers, the faint sound of his footsteps echoing in the quiet room. His mind raced, processing the impossible news. Humanity was alive. Not only alive, but armed, dangerous, and ready to fight. He had dismissed them as a footnote in galactic history, a mere afterthought. He had assumed that Earth's resources and technology were long forgotten, buried in the ashes of time. But now, their fleet had emerged from the shadows, and it was headed straight for the Council. "Prepare the defense fleets," he barked, his voice colder than the space beyond. "We will not be caught unawares." Across the galaxy, military commanders and fleet leaders received their orders, their faces etched with disbelief. Humanity's return was no longer a myth, a story of long-lost civilizations. They were coming, and they were not interested in peace. Meanwhile, in the heart of the human fleet, Captain Leela stood before the communications panel, her eyes scanning the incoming data. The fleet's trajectory was on course, but there was a new threat on the horizon. The Council's forces were mobilizing, vast fleets, an uncountable number of warships that spanned the known galaxy. But Leela wasn't worried. She had prepared for this moment for decades. "Prepare for battle," she said, her voice firm and steady. "We've waited long enough. They think we're weak. Let's show them how wrong they are." The crew erupted in action, the once muted hum of the Phoenix now alive with the intensity of battle preparations. Energy shields flickered to life. Weapons systems hummed with anticipation. Humanity's power had been buried under layers of time and distrust, but now it was unleashed. Every human aboard this fleet understood that this was their moment, not just for survival, but for retribution. As the fleet drew closer, the first of the Council's defensive stations came into view, a massive fortress floating in the void. It was designed to ward off any intruders, a symbol of the Council's unmatched control over the galaxy. But to the humans, it was nothing more than an obstacle to overcome. Lila's hand rested firmly on the control panel as she readied the attack. "Activate cloaking devices," she ordered. The ships around her shimmered, disappearing from the sensors of the galactic defenses. The fleet was now invisible, slipping through the void like shadows. The Council's fleets remained unaware of their approach, and that's exactly how Leela wanted it. "Stand by," she whispered. "We'll hit them when they least expect it." Suddenly, the cold void of space was pierced by the sharp sound of an alarm. A sensor pinged through the communication system. An enemy fleet had been detected. The system buzzed with activity, but the humans had anticipated this. They had been in the shadows long enough to understand how to strike without warning. "Engage all weapons," Leela commanded with a calm that betrayed no hint of fear. "Show them what it means to underestimate humanity." The fleet emerged from its cloaked state, the Phoenix leading the charge as the human ships began to unleash their fury. Energy blasts rained down from every ship, striking the defensive stations with precision. The once imposing fortress flared brightly before collapsing in a massive explosion, signaling the beginning of the galaxy's reckoning. The Council's forces scrambled to respond, but they were already too late. The Phoenix tore through the heart of the enemy's defensive perimeter, its advanced weapons systems cutting through shields like paper. One by one, the Council's ships fell, their captains unable to fathom the sudden and brutal onslaught. Back on Earth, the few remaining survivors watched the live feed from the battle, a glimmer of hope finally igniting in their hearts. The humans had not only returned, but they had arrived with the fury of a civilization that had been wronged for far too long. The galaxy had ignored them for too long. Now it would pay the price. Across the galaxy, alarms blared as the first wave of humanity's assault took down the Galactic Council's first line of defense. The rest of the galaxy would soon learn what had been forgotten, and humanity would never be silenced again. The galaxy was reeling. Across countless systems, the battle between humanity's fleet and the Galactic Council had ignited a firestorm of chaos. Every ship that fell to the human forces sent shockwaves throughout the known universe. The Council had underestimated them, thinking that Earth's people were nothing but an old relic of a forgotten era. Now, the humans had proven them wrong. But the true extent of humanity's power was still hidden, waiting to be revealed. Captain Leela stood in the command room of the Phoenix, her eyes scanning the vast display of incoming data. The battle had just begun, but already the tide was shifting. Her crew, composed of humans who had spent years in exile, fought with a fury that no one had anticipated. The Galactic Council's forces, massive as they were, could not match the relentless determination of these warriors. Every blow landed by humanity was not just an attack. It was a statement that echoed through the stars. "Keep pushing forward," Leela ordered. "We've got them on the run, but we're not finished yet." Her crew responded in unison, their hearts steeled by years of struggle and sacrifice. The Phoenix accelerated through space, weaving between enemy ships, its weapon systems firing with deadly accuracy. The once great fleet of the Council, meant to represent order and stability, now appeared to be crumbling under the weight of humanity's wrath. But the Council was not blind to the threat they faced. High above the battlefield, in the heart of the Council's headquarters, Chancellor Veller paced restlessly. His mind was racing, frantically searching for a solution. The humans had proven too elusive, too clever. Their cloaking technology, once thought impossible for a race of their supposed primitive nature, had caught them completely off guard. He had expected to crush them swiftly, but now, it seemed like the humans were always one step ahead. "Where are their ships coming from?" he demanded, his voice shaking with frustration. "The fleet is everywhere, Chancellor," one of his advisors replied, his voice heavy with disbelief. "We've lost contact with several of our ships, and our stations are falling one by one. They're using advanced tactics. It's like they know our every move before we make it." Veller's eyes narrowed, his mind calculating. There had to be something they could do to stop this nightmare. "Deploy the superweapon," he ordered, his tone cold and calculated. "We'll show them the full power of the Council." The superweapon, A massive energy cannon capable of destroying entire fleets in an instant was their last line of defense. With it, they could wipe out humanity's forces in one swift strike. But there was a problem. The weapon required precise targeting, and the humans had proven incredibly adept at evading their fire. Meanwhile, in the heart of the human fleet, Lila's crew was preparing for the next stage of their assault. They had learned a critical piece of information. The Council's superweapon was not just a threat to their ships, it was a threat to the galaxy itself. Its power was unmatched, and if it fell into the wrong hands, it could wipe out entire civilizations. Lila knew they had to act fast before the Council could unleash it. "Ready the interceptors," Lila said, her voice hardening with determination. "We're going to take that weapon out before it even has a chance to fire." A sense of urgency filled the bridge of the Phoenix as the crew scrambled to prepare the interceptors. These specialized ships were designed to infiltrate enemy lines, delivering precision strikes where the enemy was most vulnerable. Their mission was clear: take down the Council's superweapon, or everything humanity had fought for would be lost. As the fleet closed in on the Council's headquarters, the Phoenix and its allies engaged in a brutal dogfight with the Council's remaining forces. The space around them was filled with the flashes of laser fire and the violent destruction of ships as both sides fought for dominance. But even in the heat of battle, Layla's mind was focused solely on the superweapon. They couldn't afford to waste time. "The target is locked," the communications officer called out. "Preparing to fire." Leela nodded, her expression steely. "All ships, hold your fire. We need to take that weapon out, or we're all dead." The Phoenix surged forward, its engines roaring to life as it pierced the heart of the battlefield. The interceptors followed, weaving through the chaos as they closed in on the superweapon. The enemy's defenses were formidable, but humanity's resilience and creativity had turned the tide. They were no longer the underdogs, they were a force to be reckoned with. As they reached the superweapon, Leela's breath caught in her chest. It was more massive than she had imagined, its dark surface reflecting the distant stars. It pulsed with dangerous energy, a reminder of the power the Council still possessed. But that power was about to be shattered. "Ready," Leela whispered, her hand hovering over the fire command. In an instant, the interceptors unleashed their payloads, missiles designed to disable the weapon's targeting systems. The explosions rocked the station, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The superweapon's energy signature flickered, then faded as its systems were disrupted. The galaxy had just been spared from certain destruction. As the Council's forces reeled from the loss, humanity's fleet turned its attention back to the remaining enemy ships. Victory was within their grasp, but the battle was far from over. The Council had underestimated humanity's strength before, but now they would learn the hard way. No one could erase them. Not now, not ever. The battle raged on, but the tide of war was shifting. Humanity's fleet, though outnumbered, had proven to be an indomitable force. Their ships moved with precision, their weapons striking with deadly accuracy. But despite all the victories, Leela knew that this was not the end. The real fight was only just beginning. The Phoenix and its allies had successfully disabled the Council's superweapon, a monumental achievement. But it came at a cost. The human fleet had lost ships, and some of their best fighters were now gone. The Council, however, was not defeated. They had regrouped, and their remaining forces were more determined than ever to crush the humans who had dared to defy them. In the heart of space, the final showdown was about to unfold. "Status report," Leela barked as she paced the bridge of the Phoenix, her mind racing with calculations. She had no illusions. The Council would come for them with everything they had left, and she had to be ready. "Enemy forces are regrouping," the tactical officer responded. "They're deploying all remaining warships. The Council is pulling out all stops for this one. We need to be ready for anything." Leela clenched her fists. "We are ready. Prepare for the final assault." This was it, the moment humanity had been fighting for. the moment they would either be wiped out or stand victorious against a galactic power that had underestimated them from the very beginning. Leela's crew had trained for this moment. They had been prepared for the worst. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, they had proven time and again that nothing could break their resolve. The Council may have had the numbers, the resources, and the power, but humanity had something far more dangerous: their will to fight, to survive, and to reclaim their place in the galaxy. "Set course for the Council flagship," Leela commanded, her voice low and determined. "We end this now." As the fleet surged toward the Council flagship, the final line of defense in their quest for survival, the tension aboard the Phoenix was palpable. The crew worked in unison, their movements sharp and focused. They knew what was at stake. They knew that every decision in these next few moments would determine the fate of their species. The Phoenix broke through enemy lines, its weapons unleashing a torrent of firepower. The Council flagship loomed ahead, its massive form looming like a shadow of death. The enemy fleet, once so formidable, was now on the retreat. The humans had pushed them back. The Council had no choice but to make their final stand. "Ready the boarding teams," Leela ordered. "We're taking that ship." The battle for the flagship was unlike anything the crew of the Phoenix had ever faced. Enemy ships filled the space around them, creating a wall of destruction that seemed impenetrable. But humanity's resolve was unshakable. The Phoenix moved forward, dodging blasts and striking with deadly precision. The boarders prepared for the assault, their hearts beating in time with the ticking clock of the galaxy's fate. "We're almost there," Leela said, her eyes fixed on the Council flagship. "This is it. Prepare for a fight like no other." The Phoenix's hull vibrated as enemy fire struck it, but the ship held steady, pushing forward through the chaos. The air was thick with tension as the crew prepared for the boarding action. In moments, the fate of the galaxy would be decided, and humanity's fight to reclaim its place in the universe would either end in victory or destruction. Then, with a deafening roar, the boarding pods launched from the Phoenix toward the flagship. They sliced through space, headed for their target with unwavering precision. The crew of the Phoenix had trained for this moment, but now it was time for them to put everything on the line. Their mission was clear: get aboard the flagship, disable its command center, and force the Council to surrender. As the boarding pods neared their target, the crew's hearts raced. The final battle had begun. The Council's defenses were fierce, but they were not enough. Humanity had learned, adapted, and survived. Now, they would take the fight directly to the heart of the Council. Inside the boarding pods, the soldiers were ready. Their mission was simple but dangerous: get to the Council's command center and take it out. They had no time for second-guessing. The fate of humanity rested in their hands, and they were prepared to die if it meant ensuring that the human race would not be forgotten any longer. The countdown had begun. In moments, the galaxy would either witness humanity's triumph or their extinction. There was no turning back. The boarding pods made contact with the hull of the Council flagship with a forceful jolt. The sound of impact was deafening, but there was no time for hesitation. Inside the pods, the human soldiers were ready for what was to come. Their faces were set with determination, their hands gripping weapons that had become extensions of themselves. This was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight for humanity's place in the galaxy. The door of the pod hissed open, and the soldiers burst out, immediately engaging with the enemy. The Council's soldiers, though well-trained and numerous, were caught off guard by the ferocity of the human assault. They had underestimated humanity once again, and now they were paying the price. Leela stood at the helm of the Phoenix, watching through the ship's cameras as her soldiers stormed the flagship. Her mind raced with calculations, knowing that every second was critical. The flagship was a behemoth, brimming with weapons and defenses. The human boarding teams would need to fight their way through countless obstacles before they even reached the command center. "We've got to move fast," Leela said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "If we don't take the command center soon, The Council will be able to regroup and retaliate. The soldiers on the flagship fought with a brutal efficiency. They moved in squads, clearing rooms and corridors with expert precision. The sounds of gunfire echoed through the halls as they advanced, each step bringing them closer to their objective. The Council forces, though initially taken by surprise, were beginning to regroup. But humanity had one thing they didn't: the relentless drive to survive. "Stay close. Push forward," one of the squad leaders shouted over the comms. They moved as one, clearing rooms, taking down enemy soldiers, and moving toward the heart of the flagship. The tension was thick in the air, and every soldier knew what was at stake. Each step felt like it could be their last, but they pushed on, driven by the knowledge that the future of humanity depended on their success. Leela clenched her fists, staring at the screen. Her soldiers were closing in on the command center. They had reached the final stretch, but there was no guarantee of victory. The Council had one last trick up their sleeve: an advanced security system that would lock down the command center and trigger a counteroffensive. "They're almost there," Leela muttered to herself, her eyes scanning the readouts. "Come on, come on." The sound of a massive explosion reverberated through the ship. One of the human squads had triggered a trap, and the hallway ahead was now a charred wreck. But the soldiers pressed on, showing no sign of slowing down. "Keep moving. They're almost there," Leela urged through the comms. On the flagship, the human soldiers were within striking distance of the command center. The Council forces were scrambling, trying to defend their last stronghold. The door to the command center loomed ahead, a massive reinforced barrier that could only be breached with a direct assault. "We've got one shot at this," the squad leader said, his voice calm but urgent. "Prepare to breach." The soldiers set their charges, working in perfect unison. There was no room for error. The door had to come down, or the mission would fail. A deafening explosion tore through the silence, and the massive door to the command center was blown off its hinges. The human soldiers rushed forward, guns raised and ready. Inside the command center, the Council officials had already begun to prepare their final defense. They had no intention of surrendering. They would fight to the last. But the humans were unstoppable. They poured into the room, their weapons blazing, their resolve unbreakable. The Council officials fought back, but they were no match for the human soldiers who had been through countless battles and had never given up, no matter the odds. Leela's voice crackled over the comms, filled with hope and determination. "We've got them. Push forward. Take them down." The soldiers pressed forward, overwhelming the Council's final line of defense. One by one, the Council officials fell, their attempts at resistance futile against the unstoppable tide of humanity. The command center, once a symbol of their power, was now in human hands. Leela exhaled a breath she didn't realize she was holding. The fight was not over, but this victory was a turning point. The Council had lost its command center. The human forces had taken control of the flagship. The galaxy was no longer theirs to rule unchallenged. The human fleet, emboldened by this victory, was ready for the final push. The Council's grip on the galaxy was slipping. Humanity had reclaimed its place. They were no longer forgotten. They were no longer insignificant. The battle for the future of the galaxy was far from over, but humanity had just won its most important victory yet. The command center was now in human hands, but the war was far from over. As the last of the Council officials were captured or neutralized, Leela felt a surge of adrenaline. The fight on the flagship had been brutal, but they had succeeded. The human fleet had struck a decisive blow, and the galaxy would never be the same again. However, Leela knew the victory, though sweet, was just the beginning of a much larger struggle. "Secure the bridge," Leela commanded through the comms, her voice cool but firm. "We've got to make sure there are no surprises left." The human soldiers moved quickly, fanning out to secure the ship's most vital systems. While the enemy was defeated, their presence was still strong within the galaxy. The Council was vast, and they wouldn't go down without a fight. Humanity had exposed a crack in the armor, but it was only a crack. What came next would determine if they could finish what they started. Layla was at the heart of it now, standing in the command center. She looked over the monitors, seeing the chaos that the human forces had unleashed on the flagship. The Council fleet was in disarray, but there was no time to relax. There was still work to do. The threat wasn't over yet. "Report," Leela said to the ship's tactical officer. The officer's voice came through the comms, grim but resolute. "The flagship's defenses are down, but we've picked up a massive fleet movement on the horizon. It looks like the Council is gathering reinforcements." Leela's heart sank. As much as they had accomplished, the true test was yet to come. The Council would call upon every resource they had to put down humanity's uprising. But humanity was no longer a forgotten race. They had just proven their strength, their resilience, and their readiness to claim their place in the galaxy. "We're not backing down," Leela said, the words coming easily, instinctively. "We've got them on the run. Now, we finish it." With a commanding presence, she turned to the communication officer. "Send a message to all human fleets. Let them know what we've achieved here today. The Council is vulnerable. We're going to take the fight to them. No more hiding. No more waiting." The officer nodded and quickly transmitted the message. Soon, the entire human fleet was abuzz with the news. The Council's flagship had fallen, its command center taken, its most powerful officials defeated. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer a weak or forgotten species. They were a force to be reckoned with. The troops that had fought so hard on the flagship began to regroup, preparing for the next phase. They were battle-worn but unbroken. Each human aboard the Phoenix and the other ships in the fleet knew they had only just begun. The Council had underestimated them before, and now they had to face the consequences of that mistake. Leela stood before the vast viewports of the flagship, looking out at the stars. The view was breathtaking, silent, and beautiful. But beyond the beauty, Leela saw the war ahead. There were many battles still to be fought, many enemies to face, but humanity had proven one thing: they would never again be ignored. As the Phoenix surged forward into space, the rest of the fleet following in perfect formation, Leela felt a sense of pride and purpose. The galaxy had just witnessed a shift they could not ignore. Humanity had risen from the shadows, and they would never be forgotten again. "Prepare for the next phase," Leela commanded, her voice cutting through the tense silence. "We're going to take this war to every corner of the galaxy. Let them know humanity is back, and we're here to stay." The fleet moved forward, and a new chapter began. The war against the Council had only just begun, but the human fleet had proven they could rise up and fight. The galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had been forgotten, but not anymore. Now, the galaxy would learn the true cost of underestimating Earth's children.